Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and are having a flare-free day. Now I know you watching have probably heard about the menstrual cycle. There is a lot of information around the menstrual cycle in society more generally, but as an endo patient, I haven't really seen a lot of information around how endo symptoms can show up differently throughout the month depending on which phase of the cycle that you're in. And so in this video, I'll be breaking down each unique phase of our menstrual cycle. There are 4, how endometriosis symptoms show up differently and the hormonal changes that are happening in that phase, and tips and tricks to manage that endo pain a little bit better to feel more in control of the chronic illness that you live with. I'm not a doctor or medical provider. I'm just an endo patient that has done a lot of research and investigation, and I'm excited to share that info with you. Of course, if you feel any new, changing, or recurring symptoms around the time of your period or outside of the time of your period, to track it, write it down, and bring it up to a provider that you trust. Our bodies all react differently to hormonal changes and fluctuations when it comes to our menstrual cycle and how symptoms present, so it's all a very deeply personal experience. And to just track anything in your journal that seems a little abnormal for what's normal for you. With all of that in the mix, let's dive into the first phase of the menstrual cycle and how endometriosis may show up for you. The first phase of the menstrual cycle that I want to bring attention to is the follicular phase. This phase typically lasts 7 to 14 days depending on you and your body, and sometimes this phase can overlap with the end of your period. Now there is a reason why this phase is known as the follicular phase. Now your brain has a very small pea-sized gland at the base of the brain known as the pituitary gland. Now this gland releases a hormone during this phase of our menstrual cycle known as follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH. This stimulates the follicles in your ovary to start to mature. Follicles are fluid-filled sacs that are found within the ovary, and they contain eggs. During days 10 to 14 of this phase, one of the developing follicles in the ovary will become a mature egg known as an ovum. It's a mature egg that will be ready to be released around the time of ovulation. Again, thinking about inner spring with this phase, estrogen and testosterone, 2 very important hormones in the body, are beginning to rise. The uterine lining is also beginning to thicken again. Now in this phase, you may feel increased levels of energy. Again, you might feel that increased sense of focus or productivity start to kind of creep in again in your day-to-day life. But us living with endometriosis, your body is different and unique and beautiful. And so you might in this phase have residual menstrual pain still kind of kicking around. You might still have a little bit residual cramping happening. You might still feel low energy in this phase. You may also experience some low-grade discomfort and inflammation because of the rise of estrogen. An interesting fact when it comes to estrogen and endometriosis, they are sometimes like best of worst friends, to be honest. Endometriosis lesions found in the body have an ability to create their own estrogen through an enzyme known as aromatase. The localized production of estrogen through those endometriosis lesions can actually make endometriosis lesions, tissues, and stroma a little bit more active. Research has shown that endometriosis lesions often express higher levels of estrogen receptors. This makes endo lesions especially sensitive to the rise in estrogen levels in the body. So again, in the follicular phase, your friend group might be, again, feeling that higher level of energy, they might be doing things, and you still might feel the residual effects of the period or menstrual phase. And again, with that higher rate of estrogen rising, you may feel a sense of discomfort and inflammation continue in the pelvic zone, lower back, even down your legs. Still a time to really look after yourself, to fully rest and recover and listen to your body and what it needs. You might also experience some bloating and some belly pain or irritable bowel syndrome symptoms that might be taking place because of that rise in estrogen. Again, our bodies are different. You might have that rise in energy. You may not have that lingering pain or discomfort. But again, something to recognize that with endo, this might be the case in the follicular phase. Ways to feel better in the follicular phase with endo, focusing on anti-inflammatory practices. So again, with that rise in estrogen, it might cause that inflammation and discomfort to continue. So focus on anti-inflammatory foods like leafy greens, turmeric, ginger, and other anti-inflammatory foods to help reduce those levels of inflammation. Now in the follicular phase, you might hear in society and pop culture to focus on soy to help with that estrogen production in the follicular phase. However, With endometriosis in the mix, there have been cases and noted incidences where soy has made endo pain and discomfort worse. Endometriosis symptoms might be exaggerated or made worse by soy-based foods or supplements. Some of this can include soy protein isolates, soy milk, soy-based meats, and soy-based ice creams. But again, when it comes to your body, listen to it. If you've experienced soy-based products and supplements kind of irritating or making your endo symptoms a little bit worse, maybe avoid soy in this phase to help that inflammation and discomfort kind of settle. Other anti-inflammatory foods you may want to focus on in this phase are broccoli, carrots, and parsley, but again, listen to your body if endo interacts with this differently. Probiotic-rich fermented foods can also be something you want to lean into with the follicular phase, like kimchi or sauerkraut, but again, listen to your body if you have any endo discomfort in the past with this type of food. Stay hydrated in this phase, and again, if you are able with endo and you don't have any of that lingering discomfort or pain, try and focus on gentle movements or stretches in this phase. Introducing walking again or yoga can be really helpful and beneficial to help ease that sense of discomfort and inflammation in the body. Again, remember, it was only a couple of days prior that you may have had the most excruciating pain or flare-up that you have ever had with your period. So again, rest and recovery is so important in the follicular phase when living with endometriosis. Tracking your symptoms in this phase can be really beneficial. Again, if you are noticing that lingering discomfort and inflammation, it's definitely something to bring up to your doctor to say, hey, I'm outside of my period, but there's still that lingering pain or back pain or leg pain that I'm experiencing with my body. Following the follicular phase, we are now entering into the next phase of our menstrual cycle known as ovulation or the ovulatory phase. This phase happens mid-cycle, typically around day 14 of a 28-day to 35-day menstrual cycle, again, depending on what's normal for you and your body. So again, typically around that day 14, you are going to start to ovulate or release a mature egg from your ovary. A surge in luteinizing hormone or LH is going to help your ovary release that mature egg that was starting to develop in the follicular phase. This phase of our menstrual cycle is known as inner summer. So when you think of summertime, we're generally the sun is shining, we're feeling happy, our energy levels are super high, our libido might be moving a little bit more, and our mood is again happy, we're feeling lighter. And this is the same when it comes to ovulation. The reason why we might have that boost in energy in this phase and all of the other good things that come in this phase is because of that high estrogen level. After ovulation takes place, the ruptured follicle found in the ovary starts to produce low amounts of progesterone. We have estrogen and testosterone. Now progesterone is like, hey, I'm part of the party too. I'm part of this ovulation thing. So progesterone is starting to increase in this phase of the menstrual cycle. When it comes to those of us living with endometriosis, the ovulatory phase, again, might be a little bit different than those that you see in your friend group. Many of us living with endometriosis may experience ovulatory pain or ovulation pain. You might feel or experience some right or left side tugging, sharpness, pulling, and some pelvic pain that starts to creep in during this phase of the cycle. If you have endometriosis, lesions, adhesions, or stroma around the areas of your ovaries or fallopian tubes, this is where you might feel again that increased sense of pain, discomfort, tugging, or sharpness. Again, estrogen kind of fuels endo lesions and can make that irritation and inflammation and pain more intensified and more noticeable in our bodies around the time of this phase. Typically, elevated levels of estrogen should again increase our energy, our mood, our confidence, our sociability, and even our creativity. But again, those of us living with endometriosis may be negatively impacted by the pain and discomfort that we experience with that higher level of estrogen, which may impact our energy, our mood, our ability and want to socialize, and even our creativity. Ways to feel better and tips to manage pain in the ovulatory phase when it comes to endometriosis. You may want to apply heat or cold therapy to the area of your lower abdomen or back, depending on where your pain or discomfort is. Again, a disclaimer here, if you are using cold or heat therapy, to have a layer between the heat pack or ice pack and your skin. You want to avoid any burns that might take place. Over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen can help alleviate some additional inflammation and discomfort during this phase. Again, incorporating those anti-inflammatory foods such as omega-3 fatty acids. These can be found in salmon, Walnuts, flax seeds, omega-3 fatty acids can really help reduce inflammation found in the body. If you feel good and you don't feel that discomfort or pain creep in, opt for gentle activities, again, like walking, yoga, weightlifting can also be really beneficial in this phase. Again, moving our bodies and being physically active is important to help manage our levels of stress that might take place and can increase circulation. Using a cycle tracking app like the Flow app can be really beneficial to understand when you might start to ovulate. The third phase of our menstrual cycle is known as the luteal phase, also known as inner fall or autumn. The luteal phase typically lasts 10 to 14 days out of our cycle. It's right after ovulation happens and lasts until the first day of your period. Progesterone hormone is starting to rise in this phase. Estrogen levels still remain high in this phase. In the first half of the luteal phase, you may still have that lingering level of energy that is super high. Again, you still might feel creative and spontaneous and you want to socialize and you feel really good in the first half of the luteal phase. Progesterone levels peak in the early phase of the luteal cycle. Progesterone is really good about making us feel calm, cool, collected. If fertilization doesn't occur in the luteal phase, you'll begin to have a drop in progesterone and estrogen. Now, with the dip of the two hormones in the second half of the luteal phase, you start to introduce things called PMS. PMS is not just like a fun trick word, it's a normal scientific thing that happens with your body. PMS symptoms include bloating, breast tenderness, mood swings, increased fatigue, and you may also experience headaches. All of these symptoms may feel more intensified if you live with endometriosis. Increased inflammation from endo lesions can again create that sense of discomfort and pain start to creep in right before your period. With endometriosis in the mix, again, there are different interactions when it comes to hormones and endo. While progesterone typically has anti-inflammatory processes and effects on the body, again, that cool calming effect on human bodies, some people with endometriosis experience what's called progesterone resistance. I'm so sorry. I know, I'm so sorry. It's like one thing after another when it comes to endo. Just never get. To be fair, endo is a fighter. It just fights against all the hormones that come with our body. This may lead to, again, continuous pain and inflammation that takes place in the body. Hormone changes and shifts can also have a drastic impact on those of us living with what's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. I have a video all about PMDD. It's a real life condition that impacts individuals on a day-to-day basis. And if you want to learn more about PMDD and the symptoms that show up with it, I have a video all about it on my channel that I'll post up here. Many individuals have a dip in energy close to the second half of their luteal phase. When it comes to endometriosis in the luteal phase and ways to feel a little bit better, eating foods that help the liver process can be really beneficial, such as broccoli, cauliflower, or kale. Limiting sugar and processed foods might be also beneficial to lower inflammation that happens in the body during this phase. Incorporating anti-inflammatory supplements may also be beneficial for you in this phase. Again, those omega-3 fatty acids, turmeric, or again, that magnesium. So when you're in your luteal phase, this is when you really need to come inwards. You really need to focus on self-care to prepare your body for a potential flare-up that might take place. So in this phase, please prioritize self-care, rest, and recovery. Schedule lighter workloads if you can, or periods of downtime. Gentle yoga or meditation can allow us to come back to our body, can allow our brain to kind of settle a little bit, and can really help us during those intense mood shifts that might take place. Reducing bloating and staying hydrated can also be beneficial in this phase of our menstrual cycle. So again, drinking water, staying hydrated, also focusing on potassium intake. So think bananas, avocados, things like that to really help manage that additional bloating that might take place. Again, seeking medical care and support if you need it in this phase. If premenstrual symptoms, so symptoms right before the time of your period, are really intense, are really impacting your quality of life, you're really experiencing higher levels of anxiety or depression in this phase right before your period, definitely track it, write it down in your journal, and talk to your doctor about it. So deserving of rest and recovery, especially in this phase, if symptoms are showing up a little bit more for you. Now, the final phase of our menstrual cycle, and the one phase that I think us endo sufferers, and I'll say warriors, know all too well, is the menstrual phase, also known as our period. This phase of our menstrual cycle is typically 3 to 8 days in length, depending on you and your body and what's considered normal for you. This phase signals the end of that whole menstrual cycle and is known as our inner winter. The uterine lining, known as that endometrium, is starting to shed. Hormone levels, including estrogen and progesterone, are at their lowest in this phase of the menstrual cycle. And the drop in hormones do contribute to lower mood, fatigue, and lower energy levels. Without endometriosis in the mix, so if you have friends in your friend group that don't suffer with endo, typical period symptoms that might take place or show up for them include mild to moderate cramping, but nothing that may impact their day-to-day life or their ability to do the things that they would like to do. Nausea can take place as well, feeling of tender breasts, a bit of fatigue can creep in, sluggishness, bloating, mood swings, back pain, as well as trouble sleeping can also be symptoms that show up, and so much more. Obviously, it's not a concrete list. All of our bodies are different and beautiful, and your friend's symptoms might be different when it comes to their period. Now, with those of us with endometriosis, I feel like on this channel you can find so many videos that outline the symptoms and experiences that come up with endo. Our bodies are all different and our pain threshold is different, our endo symptoms might be different, but here are some common endo symptoms that may show up for you in the period or menstrual phase of the cycle. Excruciatingly painful abdominal pain that feels like sharpness, stabbing, pulling. You might even feel a heat. You might experience excruciating back pain, leg pain, nausea, vomiting, sweating, increased fatigue, the ability to not even move your body because the pain is so excruciating. Endometriosis symptoms can also show up in the sense of brain fog, so really difficult to find words, or it might feel like a word is on the tip of your tongue and you're like, I want to get it out, but I have no idea like what I wanted to say. It's kind of like that feeling if you go to the fridge and you're like, I knew I was looking for something here, but like, what was it? Like, I can't remember. That kind of sensation and feeling can start to creep in this phase of the menstrual cycle. Irritable bowel syndrome symptoms may also start to kick in this phase for you if you live with endo. So constipation, diarrhea, again, that painful bloating around the time of when you have to go to the bathroom might kick in this phase as well. So important to raise with your doctor if you are experiencing any of these symptoms around the time of your period or menstrual phase, because it could signal suspected endometriosis. Now in this phase, we have prostaglandin production. So we have all of those hormones that took place. We had estrogen, we had testosterone, we had progesterone, all throughout the phase of the menstrual cycle. Now when it comes to the menstrual phase or period phase, we have this thing called prostaglandins. Prostaglandins in this phase are released to help the uterine lining shed. They provide that sense of contraction that takes place to kind of help the body shed a little bit more. And that's when we might feel that sensation of cramping or discomfort take place in the lower abdomen. I do want to highlight here that prostaglandins are natural and normal and necessary in the human body. Prostaglandins have a lot of influence over key processes of the human body. However, in some bodies, there is an overproduction of prostaglandins. This can lead to prolonged inflammation and increased pain. Now, the thing with prostaglandins and endometriosis sufferers, I know I'm the bearer of bad news today, okay? I'm so sorry. Endometriosis patients often have a higher level of prostaglandins produced. The excess of prostaglandins with endometriosis sufferers is called PGE2. Excess amounts of prostaglandins released, especially during the menstrual phase of our cycle, causes more intensified contractions. So again, that increasing amounts of cramping or discomfort around the time of our period to help shed that uterine lining. Increased levels of pain can also take place with that excess amount of prostaglandin, as well as inflammation in the body. Increased amounts of pain and discomfort do take place with prostaglandin production because prostaglandins stimulate the nerve endings, especially around the uterus. Prostaglandins normally, I know, help with repair and recovery in the body. Prostaglandins are going to be released to help heal and protect that area of the body from further injury. Now, when it comes to endometriosis, endo lesions, stroma, and adhesions in the body, so throughout the body, can be sites of constant inflammation because, again, of that estrogen production. Because of this, the body is going to sense that there are sites of inflammation that need to be healed and protected from further injury. So prostaglandin production is going to be increased to help manage those sites of inflammation found in the body where endo lesions exist. Ways to feel better during the menstrual phase or period, especially if you live with endometriosis. Warm baths, if you're able to take a bath and you're not in an excruciating flare-up, baths can be really soothing, or even just like sometimes I crouch in the shower and just let heat hit the back of my back can be really helpful and soothing too. Anti-inflammatory medications can also be helpful if they're prescribed to you by your doctor. Consider herbal teas that have anti-inflammatory properties like ginger or turmeric teas. Eating iron-rich foods in this phase can be key, as well as magnesium-rich foods. So dark leafy greens, almonds, bananas, lentils, and protein-rich foods. When you think of red meats, sometimes again, it can be an iron-rich food, but sometimes red meats can again trigger endo symptoms to be worse. So again, listen to your body and what works for you when it comes to nutrition, staying hydrated. Light stretching, yoga, and gentle movement may not be in the cards for you. Rest and recovery is key in this phase for us. If you don't live with endo and you're watching this video and just want to learn more about the menstrual phases, gentle movements to help the body stretch out the muscles that have been in constant contraction can be really beneficial for your body. I've been having a new symptom for myself, which is migraines on the very first day of my period. I'm assuming that's because of the drop in hormone. So I really focus on lying down, having my herbal teas, having my heat packs, my medication, and a dark room to really set the tone of I'm in full rest and relaxation mode here. Document the severity of your menstrual pain in this phase of your menstrual cycle. The pain and discomfort that takes place while living with endometriosis, especially in the menstrual phase of your cycle, can be overwhelming and heavy and daunting. And I understand that, and I'm with you. I live with it too. You're not alone. Leaning on loved ones to talk through what you're going through can be really helpful for your support network and feeling a sense of peace during this phase. What we see is that endo can show up unannounced throughout the month, not just around the time of our period. Endometriosis in the mix, it also underscores the importance of our hormones and how they have such a huge impact on our body and our symptom presentation. Even just a slight dip in a hormone can really flare up something with endo. Understanding what phase of the menstrual cycle you are in can be made easier by tracking your symptoms through apps like the Flow app, Ovia Fertility, the Period Calendar app, or any other apps that you know of. Feel free to comment down below, as I'm sure it will help somebody else in their journey trying to track which phase of the menstrual cycle they are in. All of these apps are especially useful in understanding the unique roadmap of your body and the patterns that show up in each phase of your menstrual cycle. So with that, I hope this video has been helpful and informative. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Of course, this is not a concrete, exhaustive list of symptoms or ways to help manage your pain and discomfort, but if you have any other tips that have helped you manage your pain with endo throughout each phase of the month, feel free to comment it down below, again, because I'm sure it will help somebody else in their journey. Cannot wait to talk to you on the next one. Bye.